Felicitous greetings, fellow fanatics.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Fanatic, and today we're taking a look at Rogue Angel's Legacy of the Burning Suns, a tactical RPG-inspired science fiction legacy game by Sun Tzu Games. Please keep in mind that this is a preview based off of a work-in-progress prototype that is far from complete. As such, anything contained herein is subject to change, and much of the artwork you'll see is placeholder. In Rogue Angels, 2 to 4 players will take on the roles of mercenaries trying to make their way through a hostile galaxy. At the onset, each player will choose a character. Characters are pre-built, but as of the time of writing, you have a dozen different characters to choose from, each with 2 basic cards for movement and interaction, and 5 unique cards that differentiate them from other characters. In addition, each character comes with their own player board, which shows a character's maximum focus, shields, special abilities that they start with, and their starting personality. In the campaign, you'll flip this over for your first mission and ignore personality tokens, but for later missions, you'll take 1 token for each personality mark. In this preview, we'll be taking a look at Xalia, a Guardian weapons expert, and Bassilus, a neomorph engineer. To begin each mission, you'll consult the scenario book, which will begin each scenario with dialogue between characters to set the scene. This sometimes involves decisions that players will have to vote on, such as choosing between 2 different missions or deciding whether or not to trust an NPC. Each scenario has its own goals and challenges. Sometimes you'll need to hack into a computer, other times you'll simply need to defeat all enemies on the map, and sometimes you'll even have a choice of objectives. The very first mission acts as somewhat of a tutorial in 4 phases, with the first phase simply requiring you to move over to the next room. Keep in mind that although the initial setup only takes up a single page, missions will span multiple pages, updating the map as things go along. This can involve opening doors that were previously impassable, dealing with enemy reinforcements, or even more drastic changes if the story calls for it. We'll be looking at the final scene of the first mission, wherein the heroes have 2 options. Firstly, they may simply eliminate all enemies to escape. Alternatively, there's a terminal they can hack to open the airlock. Once open, they can escape via their ship. Although players get to make the first move when the mission first begins, enemies always get the first move after a map updates, ensuring that turns will always alternate between heroes and their enemies. The scenario book tells us to start with the disorganized attack pattern on the red side, which means red enemies will activate starting from the lowest to highest number. In this case, the red enemies are guards, although a grouping of enemies may not always be a single type. We can see on their standees that guards have 1 range, so they only attack in melee. They also have a movement of 3, an attack of 2, and 4 health. Finally, we can also see that they have 1 shield, meaning that the first point of damage from most attacks will be ignored. The disorganized attack card says the first one will move towards the nearest player and then attack if they're in range. They can't get that close right now, so they'll simply move as far as they can to get closer to the players. The second one will follow a similar rule. They attempt to attack first but have no target, so they'll skip to their move step. Even if they were within range of a player at this point, they wouldn't be able to attack now. We then come to a player's turn. Both players have their activation tokens face up, so players may choose whomever would be most beneficial to go first. In this case, Xalia decides to activate. On a player's turn, they may take 2 actions, including repeating the same action twice. Most of the time, you'll want to play cards, as this is your main way of interacting with the world around you. Be it moving, slicing open doors or into computer systems, attacking your foes, or healing your allies. Xalia first wants to close the gap between her and the guards, so she plays Dodge and Bolt. It has a speed of 2, so it can be placed into any of her card slots numbered 2 or higher. In this case, she wants it to recharge quickly, so she places it at the lowest possible spot. If the second slot were already taken, or if she had other plans for it, she could instead choose to place it in 3 or 4. You may notice the card says to move 0 spaces. That may not make much sense at first, but notice that the 0 is in brackets. If you look at the top of the card just under the image, it says to roll 3 dice, so we'll do just that. Each face of the die has different results. If you see a shield symbol, you can use that to recover a single shield point. If you see the running alien, you can use that to move 1 space. If you have a bracketed number, you can use that to add to the bracketed values of the card you just played. When you see both a symbol and a number on the same side of a die, you must choose one or the other. You can't take both. Xalia decides to use the +1 to add to the card's move. Plus she spends 2 movement from the double move side to move 3 spaces total. Moves may be done orthogonally or diagonally, so she can easily slip through to get closer to the guards. She also decides to use the remaining die to recover 1 shield. For her second action, she's going to play Exo Shuriken, but let's first see what would happen if she decided to concentrate or rest. When one concentrates, they simply recover 2 focus. Each point of focus allows you to re-roll a single die. This can be done as many times as desired within a single die roll, so long as you have focus remaining. If instead she were to rest, each of her cards currently in her action row would shift 1 space to the left. If a card reaches 0 in the process, it's immediately returned to the player's hand and may be used immediately if they have any actions remaining. Instead, Xalia plays Exo Shuriken. This deals 2 unblockable damage to all enemies within 2 spaces and allows her to roll a single die. The die lands on a +1, but since there's no bracketed numbers on this card, it's useless to her right now, so she spends a focus to re-roll it. It lands on the +1 or movement side, but she's really hoping to recover a shield, so she rolls one last time with her final focus point, but it ends up falling on the same side once more. Since she has no focus remaining, she must accept this result. Still, she gets to deal 2 damage to each of the guards, and since the attack is unblockable, it ignores their shields, reducing them to 2 health each. At the end of a player's turn, they get a free rest action. As with a standard rest action, all cards move 1 space to the left, and as a result, Xalia will take her Zealous Claymore back into her hand where it may be used on her next turn. She then flips her activation token and moves a timer token down by 1. After that, the enemies will act again, with the AI card flipping from red to yellow. If only one group of enemies remain on the map, they'll always activate each enemy phase. Otherwise, you'll alternate between red and yellow each turn. The first thug attempts to attack, but has no target, so will simply skip to their move step. The second thug manages to move within range, however, the wall blocks their line of sight, so Bassilus is safe for this turn. Next, since Bassilus is the only player character with a face-up activation token, he must take his turn. Bassilus wants to use his LP Plasma Blaster, but it's on cooldown, so he rests once to get it back into his hand. He then immediately plays it. The 2 slot is already taken, so he plays it on the 3 instead. He rolls 1 die and gets a double move, but he really wants to take out his foe in a single hit. So he spends a focus to re-roll, this time getting the +1 that he needs. This means that he'll deal 3 damage, and since the thugs are unshielded and only have 3 health, he'll take his target down with a single well-placed shot. As Xalia did, Bassilus will take a free rest action at the end of his turn, flip his activation token, and then move the timer token down 1 space. Since all players currently have their activation markers face down, they'll now flip them face up, and on the next turn, either of them may act. Before that though, it's time for the guards to go. With both of them right next to Xalia, each will deal 2 damage to her. The first strikes her and takes 2 of her shields down. The second one does the same, however, she only has 1 shield remaining at this point. If a character takes damage and they have no shields left, or if an attack is unblockable, they instead are wounded. To show this, they draw a card from the wound deck, which reveals to us that Xalia has a concussion. Luckily, this isn't nearly as bad as it would be in real life. It tells us that she loses 1 focus, but luckily for her, she has none left to lose. We then place the card into the 2 slot. Since there's an action card there, we immediately return it to her hand. However, if there had been another wound card there already, she would instead discard the concussion and fall unconscious. Wounds are recovered by rest. Once they hit the 0 spot, they're discarded, getting rid of the card. Wounds are also the primary way of adjusting difficulty. As you may notice, some wounds will have ongoing effects if you decide to play on hard mode, as well as additional effects when discarded if you decide to play on insane. Things may not look great for Xalia, but she just got her Exo Shuriken back, which will be able to finish off the guards without fail. And 1 lone thug is no match for our heroes. However, what if the players had gone the less aggressive route and decided to hack the console and escape instead? Hacking is done by interacting with objects. When you hack, you'll draw a number of tokens up to the value listed, trying to match any 3 colors of orange, blue, or purple. So why would you want to draw less? The white tiles are wilds, but if you draw 2 of them in a single action, the entire action is wasted and all the tokens are shuffled back in. Players may only keep 1 non-wild color after a hack action. During earlier hacks, the players drew 2 orange, 2 blue, and 2 white tokens. So the players know that statistically there's more purple left in the bag and decide to put back the blue and the orange. On a later turn, Bassilus, or even Xalia, may continue to attempt to hack into the system, hoping to draw another purple to finish the job.
After each mission, you'll be given more dialogue and often see far-reaching consequences of your character's actions. This can include changing their reputation with individuals or organizations, enhancing their action cards, gaining additional personality tokens, or if you're unlucky or unskilled enough on a mission, your characters may end up taking scars. If a character takes too many scars, they'll be permanently killed and you'll have to choose another to replace them.
Rogue Angels takes heavy inspiration from Mass Effect, and really, I'm just not seeing it. I've played 5 missions deep into the campaign, and there's not been a single ATV sequence yet. But really, Rogue Angels is heavily RPG inspired, and it shows. Not only in the way that the characters' choices affect themselves and their missions, but also others around them. I'm sure there's a question that many of you are thinking about right now. How does it compare to Gloomhaven? Yeah, I'm not holding up that big box in front of the camera, not sorry. I certainly feel that they're similar in their RPG-inspired roots. However, Gloomhaven feels like a much more combat-oriented dungeon crawler. At times, there's certainly puzzle elements in Gloomhaven, but they definitely feel like they're playing second fiddle to the combat. In Rogue Angels, however, it feels like there's a much more even combat to puzzliness ratio. There will certainly be times where going full Rambo is the best course of action, but you'll also have many times where you're encouraged to keep things as quiet as possible. Rogue Angels also has a much greater emphasis on narrative than Gloomhaven does, which is little surprise considering that it is part of a series of novels. As of the time of this video, the Rogue Angels prototype scenario book is over 100 pages long, and the designer estimates that it'll be around 700 pages when all is said and done. I should also briefly note that the game is being designed by Emil Larson, who is not a native English speaker. However, he has put out a statement that the game will be proofread and edited by Lisa Wiley, the author behind the Burning Suns novels. This is a very ambitious project in both the best and worst ways that word can be said. On one hand, there is a very solid foundation here, and much of the groundwork has already been laid. It's already a fairly large game with what you can currently play through with the Tabletop Simulator prototype. And if the project is finished, it will be absolutely massive. On the other hand, there are always risks with a project that is unfinished, and those should not be overlooked. If the game does successfully fund, it's still going to be quite some time before the game actually gets into your hands. That being said, this isn't their first rodeo. Sun Tzu Games has already successfully delivered 2 different Kickstarter titles, one of which was pretty big in its own right. And not exactly the same note, but I do feel I need to mention that the game will be cardboard standees only, no minis. Although I personally don't mind this, it is something that players should keep in mind. This is not a cool mini or not project. On the other hand, something that I do rather dislike on a personal note is the way that one group of enemies will get to act more often if you take out the other one. I'm not saying this is necessarily bad, and I do realize that the game is balanced around this, but personally, I've just never liked this style of turn-taking. It's the main thing that turned me away from the Banner Saga games, which I probably otherwise would have very much enjoyed. That's another title that fans of choice-driven RPGs may wish to consider. As this is a prototype, I will not be giving Rogue Angels a formal review score at this time. What I will say is that this legacy title shows a great deal of promise, and if it comes to fruition, will please many fans of ongoing adventures, especially those that may feel that campaign games are currently a little overladen with high fantasy themes at the moment. Rogue Angels Legacy of the Burning Suns is set to launch on Kickstarter on February 1st. If you're interested in backing or learning more, links are included in the description. But what about you? What do you think of Rogue Angels? What upcoming Kickstarter projects have you excited? If you have any questions, remarks, or opposing points of view, leave them in the comments down below. And please remember to like, share, subscribe, and ring that bell. And if you really enjoy my work, please consider funding my channel on Patreon. Until next time, farewell, fellow fanatics. Thank you again for watching. I have plenty more to share with you if you're interested. You can click up here above my head to subscribe to my channel. You can click over here on my monitor to see the most recent video that I've worked on. Or if you prefer, you can click up here to open this mysterious vault and see what video that the YouTube algorithm has picked just for you.